Hello, Dr. Adam Owen. I'm very pleased that you take time first to come to Slovenia. You are here in education for UEFA. How do you like being here at first?
No, it's good. It's nice. The facility's great. It's a great facility to have for a smaller nation to be able to develop coaches and players. So it's really nice to see it. Second time I've been to Slovenia, but first time I've been to the centre, so it was good.
Today the weather is okay. Yesterday I heard you had a lot of...
Yeah, yesterday we got soaked, but today was much better.
Today is okay.
Nice weather, yeah.
Okay.
Perfect.
The name of our podcast is From the Center to the Goal.
Yeah.
So I hope we will score as much as goals as possible during this time spending together. But I have here one question. Our motto is that football is much more than just winning and losing. What do you think about that?
It's a good motto. It certainly is. You know, when I think back to, playing football and coaching within clubs in the community, it has much more of an impact than just football, for sure. I'm a big football fan of a local team that I still go and watch when I can do. My family goes and watches, so it's certainly more than just a game,
It's fascinating that in United Kingdom you always cheer up for the local team and one of the big teams. But if they are in a way they will meet, you always cheer the local team.
Yeah, absolutely. It's. I started going to my first game was, I think I was about 5, 6 on my father's shoulders in the game. And it was a European game that night. It was a Cup Winners' Cup, UEFA Cup Winners' Cup game all those years ago. Wrexham played against Real Zaragoza. So that was the first game I ever went to.
I asked you before when we started, how do you feel yourself? Are you like a physical coach or you are a head coach? Where do you find yourself at the moment? Because your history is that you were everything from the physical coach to assistant coach. And
I started off as when I finished playing, I went straight into coaching. So I was a youth academy coach at first. And then when I did that, I did my sports science degree at the same time as coaching. So it's never really been one or the other. It's always been combined for me. So I've always been a coach first. But on the back of that, obviously, I have a PhD in sports science. So, it sort of lends itself really well into obviously having a better understanding of. That was the reason I did my sports science and PhD, was to have a better understanding of being a better coach, for being able to justify what I do on a daily basis. So that for me, they've always been hand in hand. It's never really been one or the other.
But at first, did you interested yourself more in physical preparation or in tactical and technical
No,
solutions?
I started off as a coach in the academy in Wrexham, my hometown club that I played for and finished playing, and my interest was always in the coaching side of it, the tactical side of it. But at a really young age, when I started coaching, I was influenced a lot physically as well. So I really had a real thirst for everything that involved developing the football player himself. So for me, my extended learning came through the conditioning side of things, but my initial contact and coaching work came from a tactical development. So the combination, to be able to put it all together, was really quite nice for me.
But do you find it difficult at the beginning? Because we all know when we look through the history, the players usually run around the pitch, do all the exercises outside the game, and now we are all putting everything we try to put in the small-sided games or in the game during the process of the training.
Yeah, absolutely. I was a player once, so I did the fitness training, I did the running up the steps and up the hills, and to be honest with you, I was quite fit as a younger player, so that was probably the the interest I always had in fitness and conditioning was because I was quite a fit player. So that was always something that I had an interest in trying to develop and understand. And I think obviously when I went through doing my degree, whilst I was doing my degree, I was still playing semi-professional and I was coaching pretty much full time. So, I had a real insight into the physical, sports science, conditioning side of things. And that really helped the interest for me. And when I started coaching all the years ago, it was very much separate. Everything was separate in the way that we would work with the players physically and then we would work with the players technically. A lot of that was probably due to the technology. The technology just wasn't there at the time, so we never really understood what was being done. Obviously, we were dealing with heart rate monitors, but in terms of GPS systems, there was none of that. That wasn't available. And so the learning of the learning from ourselves as a coach, obviously that's grown in tandem and in addition to all the technological advancements that we have now with statistics, with data, with GPS systems. So, we can really build a picture now of how we can integrate the coaching process together. So that's really, really quite powerful.
But do you find that you mentioned statistics and GPS systems and all those stuff?
Yeah.
But do you feel that the other part of the science about how to develop a player is a bit of lack to work with?
No, I think now there's so much research in football in all different areas of the game. Probably the psychological side of the development of players is probably lacking, but I think that's certainly on the forefront and a lot of real good work being done in that area. So I think at the moment in time, there's lots and lots of research out there that's published, that's available for people to access if they have an interest in different areas of the game. There's a lot more starting to be known about the development of players from a younger age through the maturation stages, through the different age groups. So I think there's certainly more best practice options that people can follow if they want to go through that process. But there's a lot of literature out there that is helping coaches in different age groups to understand what best practice looks like for those players.
So you find that before when we started to film, I ask you also, what is your opinion about science in football?
Yeah.
Is there enough of science, or we must do more? We need more science in football because you are the doctor of the.
Yeah, no, I think football science has certainly grown over the last 10, 15 years. It's been embedded in the game at the top level for a long time now. And, for me, I think it's something that is always evolving. It's something that constantly evolving, and there's maybe new techniques, new research, which points towards better ways of doing things, new methodologies, better methodologies, new training techniques. Obviously, the use of GPS, the use of different data analysis systems that are able to help in terms of the tactical strategies that people are training with or playing or analysing the game. So for me, some people don't like the scientific side of the game. Some people really enjoy the scientific side of the game. For me, I've always very much been the fact that if there's justifications and science out there to help in the way that we want to work and develop more players, better players, healthy players, and have a greater impact, then for me, I think you're really silly to not utilize the information that's out there.
For me, it was very interesting because I found in your book circadian rhythm, and this is I think the first book that I saw that someone implemented and that it's important to teach the players that it's very important when to go in the bed, how many hours do you need to sleep, when you start the day, so that you will be prepared for the training session and your body will be prepared for the training.
Yeah.
Why do you think that the other coaches or authors of don't do, or do you think we have a lack of researchers on this field?
Yeah, it's something that's been quite interesting for me for a while. Obviously, I was a very young coach when I joined the Glasgow Rangers, especially, and obviously, it always struck me, based on the science, based on the research with the circadian rhythms. Actually, an old physiology teacher of mine, she did her PhD in circadian rhythms for rowers. So she looked at the best times when to train for that particular individual. And actually looking across it, everybody was different. So every single person within that testing protocol that she did had a different peak time to train. Some were morning, some were evening. And that ever since then, really, since I was 20 odd years ago, got me thinking about, okay, well, we train, historically as football coaches or players, you train in the morning, you get up, you go to training, you train in the morning, you probably go to sleep in, 3:00 in the afternoon for a power nap. Some players will have a nap. That some of that's cultural, some of that's other reasons. But 3:00 is when we kick off in England. We kick off in games in England, or maybe we have a sleep in the afternoon, but actually in the afternoon, 6, 7, 8 o'clock, we kick off for Champions League games or UEFA Cup games. So, what we're doing is we're potentially kicking off and trying to peak at the times where a lot of the players would actually be sleeping. So how that changes the rhythm of the body could be quite impactful for a performance point of view. So for me, that's one of the reasons I wanted to initiate a little bit of research in that area with some of the clubs that we worked with. So yeah, it's an interesting topic. I think it needs more research for sure. Certainly needs more research, as always, different areas do. But, hopefully there's been some really good work done in that area. But I'm always looking to try and find how we can maximize it.
For me, it's interesting that most of the teams do the training session at 11 o'clock in the morning. So, but most of the matches we play after 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
And only the last training session, we basically do it at the hour that we will play. Is that okay for you? Or do you think that it should be a bit different or more research on this one?
Yeah, no, I would like to see a little bit more work on that, to be honest, because I did some research about a year ago on this topic, actually, from a research paper. And we looked at morning training versus afternoon training. And actually, we found that morning training was better from a training response. Yeah. But obviously it doesn't link with the performance response of a match day. So in terms of training in the afternoon. So it was quite an interesting topic to say, well, if we're training and we want the best results, maybe we are better to train in the morning to maximize performance, potential or capacity of the players. But actually how that relates back to a match day can be slightly different. So I think some of the research out there suggests that one day before the game isn't enough to have the impact that we think it might have. Mm-hmm. It probably needs to be maybe similar to if you travel abroad or you have jet lag. There's an element where it probably takes maybe 3, 4, 5 days to be able to get your circadian rhythm in tune for peaking in the performance. So for me, there's a lot of research that's certainly needed in terms of what is the perfect build-up towards peaking from a physical point of view or a biological rhythm point of view on a match day.
I will move a bit further. So when you have head of performance is basically now the term that we usually use it in big clubs, because there is one guy that have another 5 for the players that are injured, for the players that are coming back to the training sessions. What is more important for you? That he knows the tactical idea that the coach have, or it's more important that the coach listens to the physical or head of performance, how to train during the week so the match will be at the peak perform?
Yeah, I think it's a collaborative response, to be honest. the way that we try and deliver the education content is certainly for the coaches to have as much knowledge as possible. The head coaches to have as much knowledge as possible around all different aspects of the game. We always sort of say, you might not be an expert in nutrition, but you need to understand where nutrition can help you as a manager. But the same can be told with training loads, understanding, what you do in the week and how that allows the players to peak on a match day is key. I think sometimes where, as a head coach, you can be quite, if people say that you're unlucky because you've got 8 or 9 hamstrings, 7 hamstrings, it's probably not unlucky. It's probably just bad management of rest versus recovery versus work and recovery balance. So rotation of squad, I don't know. There's many different factors that can impact that. But for me, I think what's really important is the fact that that it's a collaborative approach when you're working with a head of performance, or you're a head coach working with a number of staff. And for me, it's always about giving good people the opportunity to express their concerns, their ideas, and then you as a head coach, you live and die by the decisions you make anyway. So it's certainly a collaborative approach.
Because I have in my series of coaches a lot of different approaches how to do the microcycle.
Yeah.
So I also try to do a bit of research how you are trying to do. So your basic, if I may, rhythm is after the match. If we have a 7-day period of time, so 1 match per week.
Yeah.
You have 1 day rest. After that is recovery training, then is 2 high intensity trainings, and then you have tapering.
Yeah.
But the speed training is collaborate with the tapering time. So basically, if we look from Saturday to Saturday, then you will have speed training on Thursday. How do you do the speed training in Thursday?
No, it's termed as a speed day, but for me it's a reaction day. So
okay.
Yeah, no, because the speed work, the maximum speed work in the way that we work is done on a match day -3, with a big space where we really sort of activate the hamstrings and we really push the players towards a maximum speed, because that way is, for me to elicit a lot of high speed sprint, near max speed efforts after the way that we work on a match day -4 and match day -3 with the fatigue, then that wouldn't happen.
Because the duration of the Thursday training is very short.
Very short.
Very short.
Yeah.
Basically less than an hour.
Yeah. Generally around about an hour, maybe 70 minutes maximum, based on some of the content, the technical detail.
Okay. One provocative question. The match, for me, it's not only 90 minutes.
Yeah.
Because we have to warm up them.
Yeah.
Why you never go? Is your training session only below 90 minutes, without warm up, or with warm up?
No, it's time on the grass. So for me, it does vary a little bit. It might grow over. Some individual development work will be done. In terms of the group session, it'll generally be around about the 90-minute mark on a big volume day for us. But post that, there may be a 10-minute block there where players are doing some individual work. Okay. That might be position specific, or it might be a specific physical element that they're trying to develop. So, it's, even though it's a guideline, it's never totally fixed on that mark.
But also before you go to the pitch, you are in the gym.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah.
So
we do 5 gym sessions a week.
Every day you start training session in the gym, and after that you go on the pitch. More important question for me, maybe, do you work? Is it possible in the modern football to not go to the gym and to not work with heavy loads?
Well, not everybody works with heavy loads in the gym, so if I'm putting my hand on my heart, I would say 99% of the top teams in the world are in the gym. And out of those, I would say a high proportion of them are lifting weights to a certain level of throughout the course of the training week. But resistance work can be in different ways, you know. Some people use bands, some people use heavy lifting. Me personally, based on the research and based on the success, the robustness of training, the training availability, the physical development through the seasons. For me, there's a certain load that I want the players to be able to lift, to be able to develop physically.
So you like heavy weights?
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
Run hard, lift heavy. That's the mantra.
So based on the data that I found it in your book, is also that the top teams makes more high intensity runnings than the other teams. So I don't know, I think it's from 2013, that it's a bit old now.
Yeah, we've got some latest research.
It's a bit old now, but I think it's still the same nowadays, that the teams that can run high intensity runs more than the others are on the top teams of the league.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult one nowadays, because the way that, you know, even since then, the tactical details that have changed the game quite significantly, you know. But I think the one thing that you do notice is, you know, those really gifted athletes, really gifted football athletes. You know, I think about Gareth Bale that I knew closely, worked with closely. You look at Mbappe at the moment. You look at those real high-level game changers. They can produce explosive moments that not many other players can do, and they're generally in the top teams over a period of time. So whether they've been recruited or they've been developed, the one thing we know about the game is the games are based, they're won and lost on high-powered explosive actions. If it's a jump to a head, or a sprint and a finish, or you're outrunning the opponent to be able to get to the ball first, you know, that's really where you see those real high explosive actions done. But it doesn't always work out that obviously the best teams run them more, because what you see, especially in the World Cup this time, I think it was the USA covered the most distance and the most high speed running, but, you know, were eliminated early. So I think, you know, that's an example of I think it's about using it at the right time with the right moments of the game, you know.
With enough quality players.
Absolutely, absolutely.
But how to develop the quality player? When do you think that we should start doing or thinking about the quality players? I think that in Slovenia we have a problem that we go with specialization of the player too soon. So we try to go just to kick ball from 6, and the coordination is a big problem at 15, 16, 17 years.
No, I think it's interesting. You know, early sports specialization has been, there's a lot of research. There's suggestions for it and suggestions against it. It depends on which way you sit with it.
But that depends on the sport that you are in.
It's very true, yeah, because if you look at golf, you know, the repetition of the golfer, you know, if you've got that movement and that capacity to be perfect with that swing from an early age, then early age specialization is good. Whereas football, there's a lot of different dynamics that are involved in decision making, different types of fitness, decision making with and without the ball, movement patterns. So it's very, very difficult. Me personally, looking at a lot of the research and looking at the top players that have probably come through. You know, I think that variety of sporting prowess from a younger age is certainly a positive. You know, we have a lot of players, especially in my nation, that would grow up playing rugby and football, so that they would generate that power development, that real explosive action in a rugby form, but then specialise in football in the later years. So, there's different ways, but you know, even when I was working at Celtic, there was, you know, in the academy, for example, the strength and conditioning coaches in the academy, and obviously I was a part of that, would be teaching players Olympic lifting with the weights, really setting those sort of neural pathways and those movement patterns ready for when they got a little bit older to be able to transfer that strength and power into real functional movements. So for me, I think it's important. I think it's important that kids get the opportunity to do different sports. And listen, there's nothing wrong with specialising in one, but it doesn't mean that you can't play other sports at the same time.
But do you think that the clubs also should invite other coaches, like, I don't know, judo or gymnastics or athletics?
No, that happens now. That happens now in the Premier League. Manchester United's academy, they do judo training. Different academies do boxing training. They'll bring different people in. I think the key is really, if you're bringing in a group of players that travel from afar to train with you 3 times a week in an academy, are you going to train in a different sport rather than maximise their capability in football is always the question. But it doesn't mean that you have to totally isolate it. Maybe out of a 2-hour or a 90-minute session, maybe there's a 15-minute window in there to do judo, karate, boxing, athletics, running, mechanics. So there's ways and means to integrate it within a football environment for sure.
For me, but it was interesting that when we were looking the old videos from Ajax, when they were dancing and do a lot of other stuff, they produced a lot of quality players. But after that, it's like a bit of a hole that we didn't approach or go in this way, the other part of Europe.
I don't know. I can't really comment on other clubs at the moment. But listen, there's a lot of clubs doing a lot of good things out there. I think really, if you look at good academies produce players to play in the first team or be sold on. Real top level academies maybe produce more players. But again, a lot of that will come to the location. Do they have access to the best kids in the area? There's a lot of turnover in some of the clubs. I think about Benfica, I think about Dinamo Zagreb, 2 fantastic producers of talent, but they have a real monopoly in certain areas where they attract the best players. So, are they a great academy, or do they have access to the best kids in the area? Again, it's a trade-off in terms of, listen, they've been doing it. They have a methodology of work which has been very, very successful over time. So for me, until you're inside the places and you see how it's working, it's difficult to be able to comment on other people.
You mentioned Dinamo Zagreb. We were there also. They at one point they hired 19 physical coaches just to develop specifics of the players. Do you think that in the future there will be more like when we talk about physical preparation, the player, I'm talking about now basically about top players, that they will have own physical preparation and they will come to the club just for tactical solutions?
Well, it's a good question. It's a good question, and actually, it's already happening. It's already happening in the game, Because the rhythm of the matches, it's so high that they are basically only play match, recovery, and after that is another preparation for the match and the match. Yeah, I think there's always little ways of microdosing sessions into the actual training protocol. So even if you have a game, if you have 2 games a week, it doesn't mean that you have to eliminate every element of strength development, for example. So there's always ways of microdosing within and around the sort of training and the games program. In terms of individual training, listen, players have got their own confidant, people that they trust to look after them. If they're moving from club to club, sometimes they might join a club, they might not be too sure about, what the system is, the structure, what the philosophy is for the gym-based work, for the on-pitch conditioning work. So they feel a lot more confident working with their own individual coach. And I understand that. There's no problem with that. I think the problem happens where communication is lost, whereas maybe they're working in one way and then they're losing the player. He's going and working with another coach in another way. And then all of a sudden they break down, maybe injured because they're overloading, they're underloading. There may be elements of that. So I think it's definitely happening. We've had people in the past where, they've come to the clubs that I've worked at, and said, "Oh, is it okay if I can bring my fitness coach in with me?" And then they've come in, we've looked at how they work with the players, and
we have the same problems.
Terrible. So we've actually they've ended up moving away from the fitness coach because what the advice that they were getting was nowhere near the level of what was being delivered in the club environment. So the club environment, as far as I'm concerned, if you're a professional football club, you should employ what you class as the best people for the job. And that's part of the process. So, allowing outsiders in at times can be a little bit tricky, but it doesn't make it wrong. It just means that the communication between...
Because we have a lot of problems in Slovenia that a lot of players use additional coaches for physical preparation.
Okay.
And they are not interested about what is the cycle during the week in the club, and then you have a lot of injuries and problems like that.
That's impossible to work that way, really, to any real level, because if you don't have an understanding of the training cycle that the player is working to, you may be overloading a muscle that has already been overloaded in the morning. You may be doubly overloading it in the afternoon, or following up the following day, overloading the muscles that's already been worked. So for me, it doesn't make sense to not have that collaboration if that's the way that it's going to be.
Okay, we move or go back to the small-sided games. So the question, can we work only with small-sided games and prepare the team with small-sided games? We said before that 5 times a week we are in the gym, so it's not only the small-sided games. But what is the basis that you think that we can do with small-sided games?
No, I think, small-sided games has been something that has been a big topic of mine and real interest in since I combined that physical with football over the years. And, it's a small part of the process, as with everything else. It all comes together. And obviously, small-sided games has a limitation, because if you only ever train in small-sized areas, you never expose players to the demands of the game. You never expose them to high-speed actions. You never expose them to maximal sprint speed. So that, if you're a coach that only ever trains in small areas, then you're probably lacking the preparation aspects for certain players because the way, they're not making similar movements as they are going to be on a match day. So you have to prepare them to be able to deal with all the demands of a competitive match.
So that's why you have the sizes of the pitch different due to the day that you are training. So, as we were discussing, but you never during the week do you ever train or play on the whole pitch?
Yeah.
And that which day is that?
That's a match day, mate. So for us, in the way that I presented to the coaches today, that would be 3 days before the game is full-size areas, big spaces, 10v10s, 11v11s, 9v9s, big spaces, big areas. So that all fits into the working microcycle. Okay.
But a lot of games that you play are from 1v1 to 5 versus 5.
Only on one day.
Only on one day.
Yeah.
And then
maybe 2 days of the week.
And then you progress. But for me, it was very interesting that you research that it's very important how many touches players are allowed in the game, like 3 versus 3, and how the distance they are covering during the time they are playing. Do you find that it's very important to give players a lot of additional information what they can or cannot do during the play?
I think when it comes to the game part of the training sessions, it's pretty much free play. There's obviously conditions within it, but for me, the game stimulus, especially in small-sided games, it's so intense at first team level that you don't really want to overload them psychologically with lots of different complexities within it. So for me, when we do small-sided games at first team level, it is purely for a physical overload and a physical output. So, obviously when we're delivering other content with more of a tactical focus on different days, then that's totally different. But in terms of the small-sided games, especially if we're doing 3v3s, 4v4s, then it's generally for a game stimulus that we want to try and elicit that overload from a cardiovascular point of view, as well as a change of direction, acceleration, deceleration type session. So that fits within the training model that we have and that we've presented over the last few days here. Is very specific to one particular training day.
So you don't use it when you train to give the players only 2 touches. You allow them to have free play.
A lot of that will depend on what the focus is of the session.
When do you use like two touch or 1 touch?
Yeah, I think at times if for me what we've started to do and what's quite interesting, and we spoke with the coaches earlier, is that you can use different rules with different players to try and maximise their own personal development. So if it's a centre midfield that maybe loses possession at times in certain areas, maybe he can be constrained with 2 touches. Because we know that he's going to maybe we just want to try and quicken him up a little bit in possession. Maybe the younger players, whereas it might be a winger in a small-sided game that you want him to have lots of touches and take players on and practice what he's going to do on a match day. So, he can be free play. There may be 2 players in the same side that are working 2 touch and one is for all, So that way you start to change the dynamics and the development processes and the thought processes of where they are,
Because one of your research is also that you basically develop by the size of the pitch and the number of the players and the touches that players have, then the distance they will cover.
Yeah.
So you basically don't need GPS to monitor them.
Yeah, exactly. It's been quite interesting over the last 10 years, really, where we've developed a catalogue of drills where, of course, based on the level and the quality of the player, it's a little bit different. It changes, but generally we will be round about, if we're working with professional players or academy players, we already know what the session will give us generally, based on the sessions that we prepare. So, that obviously helps with training load management. It obviously helps with injury rates because we don't create training spikes by overloading too much on particular days. And actually what we've seen now is if we do want to overload a week, then, we'd really need to be within the 10% overload to not create too many training spikes and too many training issues with that from an injury point of view. So, the focus for us is really understanding. We already understand what the drills will give us before we even step foot on the grass.
But is there a catalogue that other coaches can also get, or it's just for you?
No, the catalogue is something that I've developed over a period of time. But one of the latest books that I published actually in football periodization is got a load of drills with a load of physical output. So
the coach wants to...
If the coach wants to understand a little bit more about what types of sessions provide what type of output, then that book, that's exactly the reason I developed the book.
Okay, so they should read it and they will find the solution for themselves.
Exactly.
Okay. When you were doing a lot of research, it's basically that you monitoring the heart rate. But do you still, because this was before the GPS systems, do you still use the heart rate monitoring, or you are now only on GPS systems?
No, we still monitor heart rate loads because, again, it's the foundation that underpins a lot of physical developments. The game, you still need to be exceptionally gifted from an endurance point of view to be able to play the game at the top level. So GPS is obviously geared more around the accelerations, the external elements, but heart rate is fundamental for the internal measuring. So for us, a lot of the training responses that we want is to drive heart rates above 90%, because that will drive an improvement in cardiovascular fitness. And actually, in terms of the term robustness, in terms of being able to offset injuries. We've seen that players that have a fantastic or an improved VO2 max or endurance capacity are able to maybe handle training spikes or loads slightly better, which reduces their risk of injury. So for me, heart rate response and training the heart rate response is still significant within the way that we work.
So when you're beside the pitch, or a physical coach, when he's monitoring all the load that the players do during the running, we know that in nowadays when the player reach the amount of meters or what he should reach, he basically finish the training session, and the players that didn't reach the amount that they should, they will do additional runnings after the training session.
And again, that's the technological advancements that's been made that allows us to understand, what players are comfortable with dealing, the loads that players are comfortably used to managing, versus, understanding about being able to push players to the next level, because our job as a coach, whether it's a technical, tactical coach or a physical coach, our job is to push players to the next level. So, we utilizing the advancement in the technology available to us, I feel we're able to minimize injury and maximize performance.
Do you find today that it's more difficult to rest player, that he's prepared for the next training session, or to push him a bit harder?
Sorry, say that again?
Do you find today the players are in great rhythms? So a lot of matches, hard training sessions, from fitness to pitch to all the other stuff that they have to do.
Yeah.
Do you find that today is basically harder to rest them, that they are prepared for the next training session, or it's understand what I'm trying to do?
No, not really. But basically, I think
I think that there are a lot of them are too tired, or they are coming to the pitch, to the training session, not recovered.
I think, listen, the most important thing in football is to be fresh for the match. That's the most important thing. So it's more important that, when you get the opportunity to work and develop the players physically, fundamentally important to be able to do that. But it's more important that they're fresh for games than they are tired going into games, because the risk of injury is higher, the performance drops off. So for me, I'm more from a performance point of view, not necessarily an academy development point of view, but a performance point of view. The focus with the senior, with the first team players or the first team squad, is that they are fundamentally fresh and well prepared to play in the next game. To walk into games when you are heavy legged, as we all did at some point, not fit, not fresh. Listen, you're maybe never 100% when you play 2 games a week. There is always maybe something that doesn't feel quite right, but that's quite normal for players to be able to manage and deal with. But it's to make sure, obviously, monitoring training, monitoring testing. The key with that is to make sure that they are not at risk when they go into the games.
How do you test your players that you know when to push them to the next level?
A lot of that comes down to the training monitoring aspects that we do, the combinations of, blood, saliva testing, RPE monitoring, looking at the GPS data, understanding where they are, having conversations with them, because you can test everything you want, but you still need, as a coach, you need a rapport with the players. You need to be able to have a chat with them, a discussion with them, get a feel for them, how are they, and they need to be able to trust you to make the right decisions for that. So, not always is it numbers and statistical based. It's a personal approach to it.
So it's important to have, before the training session, polls where they're...
Yeah, absolutely. I feel that it helps you make decisions, as long as the players trust that you're going to make the best decisions for them, and it's an honest approach.
About the young players, when do you think that they should start with normal cyclization, like old players?
when they're getting into that bridge between the first team. For me, when they're in the academy and they're not near the first team, that I have a separate mentality towards it. In the academy development, it is a development process. But in the first team, it's a performance process. So obviously you have some players that are sort of float between the two. You know, they come into the first team, but they never really play and they float between. They're at the biggest risk of injury because of the lack of physicality, the lack of durability that they have at a young age, making that step into the first team environment. Plus, they don't always play for the games, but they're preparing for games, but never play. Then they come down. So for me, that sliding approach is key. But there's a definite line and a definite cut-off between development, where they should be training more than the first team environment, and then the performance aspect where you need to manage them to maximise them at the weekend from a result and a performance perspective.
Do you find young players that they are recovering faster than the old players?
Yes, but I think that's probably due to at times it can be, you know, the lack of intensity that they're training with, so they recover faster because the games program isn't as demanding. Psychologically, it's probably not as demanding as first team environment. So, you know, I wouldn't say they necessarily recover faster, but obviously at a slightly more youthful age, they're able to, you know, I certainly don't believe in a second day recovery with younger players, whereas I would do that with older players.
We were doing a bit less questions. Do you find the technology at the moment that it's a problem, or it's something that will push football to the next level? Because it's a lot now. We are a lot of statistics, a lot of analyzing.
I think the key for me is always having the right people that can interpret the data into a meaningful way. There's a lot of analysis, a lot of data out there, but a lot of the information that you can gather doesn't really impact what you do on the pitch, how you train, how you coach, how you want to play, how you prepare a team for the weekend. So for me, there's a lot of noise around the technology within the game. I think the key really is having a specialization in terms of understanding what technology is going to help me prepare the team and help the team produce the performance on the pitch. And that's the key, really.
I was thinking that we are losing sometimes our focus, what to do on the pitch, because we are too much in the data.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think maybe some people do, but I can only talk for myself. I don't know what other people do, but there's a lot of technology out there, a lot of data. It's easy to waste your time on data that doesn't affect the training or affect the games. But for me, it's having an understanding and a knowledge of what is important for you as a coach, as a team, as a manager, as a staff.
So, do you think that artificial intelligence, that it's now very focus at the moment, will come also in the football?
I think
or you have any information that some of the clubs already use it?
Artificial intelligence is going to be is very prominent in all walks of life at this moment in time, and can affect a lot of different things in a lot of different ways. I think the fact of the matter for me is, you know, it's still players playing out there. You know, they still have to make the right decisions at the right time. You know, until robots start playing out there instead of human beings, then I'm not too worried in terms of where it's going to go. I think, again, similar to all different technology, it's just how you can utilize it. I think what there is some really interesting stuff now is in looking at trends and patterns, using some of the AI stuff in terms of, you know, where the ball is in the play, and sort of the synchronicity of the players' movements, and understanding, you know, what decisions players generally do in these moments, and as a result of that, how we can then affect it. So, you know, again, the fact is, fatigue plays a part in decision making, and you know, being able to put players in a fatigue state more and more will hopefully allow them to be able to make better decisions. And you know, the use of VR is for example, is quite an interesting technological advance in terms of seeing where players made mistakes within the game or poor decisions, and then being able to put them back into that situation to be able to see the decisions they made compared to the decisions they could have made. So that's where I think I think the technology is certainly going to move into that area a lot more.
Okay. Well, final question: what kind of game that your team is playing do you prefer more? A lot of transition or a lot of possession?
Good question. I think. Listen, I like watching both. I think if you look at the top two of the top teams in the UK at the moment that I like to watch, obviously, I'm a Manchester United fan, so it pains me to say it, but if you watch Manchester City and the way that the manager there has made some fantastic changes tactically, very innovative in the way that he looks at the game, like a chess game really. And then you look at Jurgen Klopp that's come into Liverpool with a real high energy, high pressing element and really changing the game in that way. I really enjoy watching the both of them, to be honest. I think with my background, having a PhD in sports science and obviously physical preparation, how I can impose that into a technical strategy for me. I quite like games with transitions a little bit more. I think I like to watch games with transitions, but I think as a manager, I'd like to dictate the possession a little bit more. So
to dominate the game.
But I think from teams that, my team, if you were to put a blueprint on a team that I would like to have and what I would expect out of my team is always to be the fittest team in the league, the most high impact, real high tempo team, front foot aggressive with an attacking basis. I think that's the team that I would like to choose.
Thank you for your time.
No problem.
I hope you enjoyed the question.
Yeah, thank you.
And to give you some new question for you and for your research.
Yeah, no, great. Thank you.